was doing a delivery one late night. It was probably the longest drive I've ever taken for a pizza delivery from the pizza place I used to work at. It was a 20-minute drive, which isn't too crazy out where I live. Plus they ordered 4 large pies, so I figured it was a party, and I get a much bigger tip. Navigating the dirt roads at night was always annoying though. I pulled up to the given address. It was some old sketchy looking building, literally in the middle of the forest. There were no cars parked anywhere, or any lights on. I put my car in park and I called my boss. I asked him to reread the address at least 3 times to make sure I typed in the right place. I could tell he was in a really bad mood, and he told me to at least knock on the door and check it out. He would normally get mad if we took back 1 pie, but I was afraid of what he would do if I brought back 4. I was insanely unnerved, but I got out anyway and forced myself to the front door of the building. There was no doorbell, so I just knocked really hard. I heard nothing and didn't really expect anything. I was extremely disappointed, not because nobody answered the door, but because I was realizing that it was all a waste of time and gas. I knocked on the door 1 more time, out of desperation, then began to hear some sort of rustling noise from inside the building. I knocked again and yelled this was a pizza guy. There was silence now. I felt a bit more uncomfortable now than before, but before I could turn around, I noticed something at the window. There was someone looking through the window. I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. All I noticed were their eyes. Their eyes were open, wider than I knew, possibly staring intently at me. I was disturbed enough by this to drop the pizzas and run back to my car. The terrible thing wouldn't start until turning the keys for the 3rd time. I drove off the grass and back onto the dirt road, but I felt the car rocking about, shaking and bumping. Something wasn't right. I didn't make it far from the building before I started hearing a sharp scraping sound coming from the outside. There was so much resistance that I couldn't even drive. The car came to a stop. I got out the car to check what the hell was wrong. A chill ran up my spine as I began to feel my heart was racing. My tires had been slashed and had completely fallen off the rim. Not just the front, all 4 tires were slashed. I realized somebody did this when I was knocking on the door to that building. Instead of running, I got back into my car and locked the doors. I was so close to that building, I could practically see it from where I was, if it weren't for the trees blocking the view. I called 911 and told everything to the operator. She told me the cops would be over as soon as possible and that I need to stay hidden. I asked her if it's the right idea to stay in the car or run, and she told me it would be best to stay in the car with the doors locked. She asked me to stay on the line with her until the cops would arrive. My whole body was shaking in all directions. There was nothing but dark, seemingly endless forest. I knew it would take forever for the cops to get there. I was not comfortable with sitting in that car so close to whoever did this. The next part is what utterly destroyed me. It still shakes me to this day, and I hope nobody ever has to experience this kind of fear. As I was scanning all the windows, making sure nobody was outside, I looked in the rearview mirror, and there was that same person. The same person I saw at the window, eyes opened wider than ever. I could see now that it was a woman, and I could ever so slightly see a smile begin to spread across her face. I opened my door and full on sprinted into the woods, not caring how much noise I made. I ran until I was out of breath, which didn't take long, and I hid behind a giant log on the ground. I tried to cover my loud breathing with my hands as I waited and waited for what felt like hours, until I finally heard sirens in the distance. I gathered up all the stamina I had left to run all the way back into the direction of the dirt road. Eventually the glowing red and blue lights came into view, and I had never felt better in my life. They parked the car in front of my car, investigating with flashlights. I came out yelling to them like a lunatic to help me. I fell to the floor and started to gag, almost throwing up, running so much. They picked me up and began to ask me questions, to which I explained everything to the best of my ability. One of the 2 cars drove over to the building, and 2 of the officers began to search the building. They came back with nothing, except for a couple of spiky objects. These objects were exactly the same as the ones used to slash my tires. The cops guessed that it was some kind of sick, demented couple, being that I saw the woman, but unfortunately, as far as they know, they were never found, and that still kills me inside to this day. I obviously quit my job right after that and started working at a local grocery store. I'll know that I'll never forget seeing that woman at the back of my car. It's a little known common courtesy out in the mountains during a snowstorm that if someone's seeking shelter in your cabin, you let them in. I wasn't the one offering that courtesy to someone else in the story. I was the one seeking refuge. It was supposed to be a long weekend of hunting, but what started as a cold sunny day quickly formed tons of dark storm clouds, and I quickly found myself right in the middle of a blizzard. After a full, rather unsuccessful day of hunting hares, I was way too far and disorientated to make my way back to my cabin. I had to seek refuge somewhere else. I came across a log cabin nestled between a circle of trees, no light on, but I still had to try the door. I hit the door with my fist a few times, no answer, but I could hear footsteps on the other side approaching the door. I expected it to open, but it didn't. I shouted that I'm lost and I need shelter. The door cracked open, and I heard a voice say, "Come in and leave your boots by the door." I waited a bit, expecting him to fully open the door and formally greet me, as anyone would, but that didn't happen. So I pushed the door open myself and entered the dark cabin. The room was lit by 2 candles, just enough for me to see the couch that the man told me to sleep on. As for the man, all I saw was a silhouette on the far side of the room. The little light from the candles didn't extend that far. I dropped my bag and gun on the floor and laid down on the couch. I thanked the man for letting me crash here till the storm blows over. He didn't answer. His behaviour wasn't the most bizarre thing. Folks are strange up in the mountains. If he wasn't up for conversation, I'd get some early shut-eye. I was subconsciously waiting to hear the man's footsteps leave the room, but they never did. I opened my eyes and his silhouette was still in the corner of the room, just standing there. I felt the need to say, "Yeah, I think I'm going to get some sleep now, thanks." No response. I turned to the other side so that I wouldn't be tempted just to keep opening my eyes to check on him. Some time passed, but without having heard his footsteps walk away, the curiosity was eating away at me. I turned to look over again, and this time, I swear, the silhouette of the man was closer, by at least a few feet. I couldn't make out his face, but the slight glow from the candles would just barely trickle around the man's forehead, and what I saw was disgustingly pale skin. I quickly gathered my belongings and thanked him, but I said I had to go. I didn't look at him anymore, because I don't think I wanted to know what he looked like. I put my boots on outside and hurried back into the blizzard. I came across another cabin down the hill, this one with the lights on. I knocked on the door and some older man and his wife answered the door. They welcomed me in immediately and were very inviting. They gave me some hot tea and offered me a spot on the couch. I told them my story about the freaky cabin up in the hill, and the two looked at each other puzzled. The woman confirmed 2 times the cabin I was talking about. Then she said, "Honey, the owner of that cabin was murdered 2 years ago. The cabin has been vacant ever since."